has fought to keep his power as king of Israel. Then from the 10 tribes that left him to follow Sheba, the son of Bichri, in the last chapter. His throne is secure, but his reign is not trouble-free. Let's see what happens here. I'm in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 1, reading from the New American Standard Version. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David sought the presence of the Lord. And the Lord said, "It is for Saul and his bloody house, because he put the Gibeonites to death." So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the sons of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. And the sons of Israel made a covenant with them, but Saul had sought to kill them in his zeal for the sons of Israel and Judah. David knew that this famine was from God, so he sought the Lord. The Lord revealed that this famine was indeed from him, and the reason was because Saul and his bloody house had put the Gibeonites to death. We're told that Israel had made a covenant with them. This goes back to the time of Joshua chapter 9. At God's direction and with God's help, Joshua and the men of Israel had gone into the promised land in order to conquer it. God had told them to conquer everyone in the land, and they had conquered Jericho and Ai, and the Gibeonites would have been next. But the Gibeonites tricked them. They went to Joshua and his men wearing worn out sandals and clothes with old crumbly bread, and they said that they had traveled from a far distant country. They said they had heard about their God and what he had done in Egypt, and they said, "We are your servants. Now then, make a covenant with us." Joshua did not seek the Lord in this. They made peace with the Gibeonites. They made a covenant with them to let them live, swearing an oath to them. 3 days later, they found out that these men were actually their neighbors living in the land. Joshua said, "Why did you deceive us?" These men said, "We knew that the Lord your God told you to destroy the inhabitants in the land, and we feared for our lives." Joshua and his leaders told their men in Joshua 9:19 and 20, "We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and now we cannot touch them. This we will do to them, even let them live, so that wrath will not be upon us for the oath which we swore to them." This covenant had been in place for 400 years. Apparently, King Saul didn't know. So this chapter says in his zeal for the sons of Israel and Judah, he sought to kill them. But God does not forget covenants. He takes them seriously. He shut up the heavens and brought about a famine so that this breach of covenant could be addressed. Continuing verse 3, thus David said to the Gibeonites, "What should I do for you, and how can I make atonement that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" Then the Gibeonites said to him, "We have no concern of silver or gold with Saul or his house, nor is it for us to put any man to death in Israel." And he said, "I will do for you whatever you say." So they said to the king, "The man who consumed us and who planned to exterminate us from remaining within any border of Israel, let 7 men from his sons be given to us, and we will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." And the king said, "I will give them." David doesn't hesitate because he knows how God feels about this matter. God brought the famine, and God told him why. The Lord expects David to take action to right the wrong that Saul committed. We don't know how many of the Gibeonites Saul and his bloody house killed, but the Gibeonites say that 7 of Saul's sons will serve as justice. Continuing verse 7, but the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath of the Lord which was between them, between David and Saul's son Jonathan. David could not violate one oath in order to satisfy another. So the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, Armoni and Mephibosheth, whom she had borne to Saul, and the 5 sons of Merab, the daughter of Saul, whom she had borne to Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Mahalathite. Then he gave them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them in the mountain before the Lord, so that the 7 of them fell together. And they were put to death in the first days of harvest, at the beginning of barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock, from the beginning of harvest until it rained on them from the sky. And she allowed neither the birds of the sky to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. So we know that this is what was required to rectify the wrong, but it's still sad to see 7 of these sons, and grandsons are considered sons, having to be put to death. We feel for Rizpah as she mourns and fiercely protects these bodies from being disturbed by birds and beasts. David was apparently moved as well. Continuing verse 11, when it was told David what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, then David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the open square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them on the day the Philistines struck down Saul in Gilboa. This is from 1 Samuel 31. Saul and his sons were killed in battle, and the Philistines took their bodies and fastened them to the wall of Bethshan. The men of Jabesh Gilead heard about it, walked all night, and took the bodies of Saul and his sons and buried their bones in Jabesh. Continuing verse 13, he brought up the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from there, and they gathered the bones of those who had been hanged. They buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son in the country of Benjamin and Zelah, in the grave of Kish his father. Thus they did all that the king commanded. And after that, God was moved by prayer for the land. David clung to God in this matter. He sought the presence of the Lord to find out why there was a famine. When God told him, he didn't hesitate to do what needed to be done. David wanted God's blessings upon the land, and those blessings were being hindered. And notice, God wasn't even hearing their prayers. That is serious. Now, once again, God is moved by prayer for the land. Continuing verse 15. Now, when the Philistines were at war again with Israel, David went down, and his servants with him. And as they fought against the Philistines, David became weary. Then Ishbi-Benob, who was among the descendants of the giant, the weight of whose spear was 300 shekels of bronze in weight, was girded with a new sword, and he intended to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, helped him, and struck the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David swore to him, saying, "You shall not go out again with us to battle, so that you do not extinguish the lamp of Israel." David is no longer the shepherd boy who took on the giant Goliath single-handedly. He is older, And though he still has the heart of a warrior, he went out to battle with them. He became weary and vulnerable. But that fierce warrior Abishai was right there to help his king. They had to tell David, that's it, no more battles. You're the lamp of Israel and we need to protect you. Continuing verse 18. Now it came about after this that there was war again with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite struck down Saph, who was among the descendants of the giant. There was war with the Philistines again at Gob, and Elhanan, the son of Jar-Oregim the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. There was war at Gath again, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also had been born to the giant. When he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were born to the giant at Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So this last part of the chapter chronicles 4 who were born to the giant at Gath, all of whom were defeated by David's men. David might not be in battle himself, but God remains faithful to his promise to help David defeat his enemies. David has fierce warriors like Abishai, but make no mistake who is fighting for them. The battle is the Lord's. I want to go back to verse 14 where it says, after that, God was moved by prayer for the land. Do we take prayer for granted? Do we think we can act any old kind of way and God is obligated to hear and respond? This chapter shows us that sin can interfere with God hearing and answering prayer. Psalm 66:18 says, if I regard wickedness in my heart, the Lord will not hear. If we have unconfessed sin in our lives, that can hinder our prayers. God is not moved by those prayers. It's not a place we want to be in. In that place, we are not clinging to God. Sin puts a wedge between us and God. We don't have the sweetness of his fellowship. We don't have the close communion with him. That intimacy that breathes life into every aspect of our days. A famine told David that something was wrong. If you sense that something is not quite right in your soul, you feel distant from God, you're not sure if he hears you, examine your life. Is there unconfessed sin? Ask the Lord to show you. He will be moved by those prayers. Prayers that invite him to examine your heart. Sincere prayers of repentance. He wants you abiding closely with him. Cling to God by being quick to confess sin and enjoy the intimacy that comes with a fruitful prayer life.